All right. Hey, it's October 24th, 2020. It's about 9 p.m. at Eastern Standard Time. My name is Chris Lucas, also known as Liquid Smooth, and my website's fishingfortruth.com. Um, and I also have another channel. I need to leave the link and start leaving the link in the description. But if people could please subscribe to my channel, Fishing for Truth, I would appreciate it. I'm trying to get up to about at least 1,000 subscriptions on both my channels, just because there's other features I can access on YouTube, and I'd like to do not live streaming. There's some live streaming options I can't do without it, and I kind of want to keep the purposes of that to myself and surprise it on someone, um, because I really want to go after the powers that be, and I'd like to have there's some things I need to be able to do that. um, but anyway, and today I just want to do a video about Lincoln, and I guess trying to add to my comment I made on my last video. Well, not my video about the Catholic Church removing the Bible from public schools. And basically, I said that okay, let's see here. I said that the Vatican basically started running the Democrat Party in 1841, and I pointed out in the book Pope or President why I believe that, and why I believe that was like the start of it taking over the Democrat Party. And basically, I think throughout the years, as soon as the Vatican assassinated Abraham Lincoln, that it slowly started taking over the Republican Party as well. And I actually think it already had agents within it trying to control the party, even when it was newly formed. But one of these quotes I'd like to read about, because a lot of people like church militant will say that they'll quote this quote of Lincoln. Let's see if I can find it real quick, and I'll read it. Um, Oh, yeah. If I could save the Union without freeing any slave, I would do it. And if I could save it by freeing all slaves, I would do it. And if I could save it by freeing some and leaving others alone, I would also do that. What I do about slavery and the colored race, I do because I believe it helps to save the Union. And what I forbear because I do not believe it would help to save the Union. Now, I think me personally, I don't read a ton into that, knowing Lincoln and just knowing that he hated slavery, and so did many Americans, especially in the North at the time, really hated slavery. So, I mean, me personally, I think he is just he's trying to be constitutional, legal, and at the same time trying to appease some of the Northerners who did not want to fight a war over slavery. But the key word is if I could save the Union. And I believe like a lot of people do not understand what a big deal that one sentence means, and that one phrase means, save the Union. And what I want to point to is there's this quote by Marquis de Lafayette, and he says, "Our Articles of Confederation ought to be revised and measures immediately taken to invigorate the Continental Union. Depend upon it. There lies the danger for America. The last stroke is wanting, and unless the states be strongly bound to each other, we have to fear from British and indeed from European policies." And so I just want to bring up the fact that saving the Union was a big deal to many Americans because they believed that if they saw a disintegration of it, it would start to lead them to be vulnerable to British and European politics, especially the Vatican. And basically, that's why the Monroe Doctrine was passed about 30 years before the Civil War. It was to protect the United States from European influences, but particularly the Vatican influence. And I'd like to let's see here if I can find this one page I would like to read. If I can even find it, okay. There are little comments I'd like to read off of this. Just kind of winging this video, so bear with me. Oh, great. Okay, I'm going to start reading. Okay, but the educational policies of Pope Pius IX were criticized in that they continued to neglect the natural sciences. Primarily, education was not mandatory in the Papal States and was generally left to the religious orders or to private concerns. He was, however, a patron of the arts, art, architecture, painting, sculpture, and theater, etc., and in particular, the restoration of churches and the protection of the Colosseum and other Roman relics. The more important part is down here. It was in the Americas and his attempts to meddle in the affairs of Mexico that caused concern in Washington and may have been directly responsible for the development of anti-Catholic sentiment in the United States. And during the Civil War, French supported Maximilian I, who, with the blessing of Pope Pius IX before he set off for Mexico, attempted to establish a second Mexican empire. Lincoln, preoccupied with saving the Union, was unable to help the Mexicans or stop what was clearly a violation of the Monroe Doctrine, the interference of European powers in the affairs of the Americas. The fact that this intervention was supported by the Pope was known at the time, and after the Civil War, the United States supported the Mexicans, and Maximilian I was overthrown. Part of this story was told in an earlier blog post entitled Cinco de Mayo, the Confederacy and General Joe Shelby. The connection of the papacy with the Confederacy was not lost on the Americans. Pope Pius was the only foreign ruler who gave any level of diplomatic recognition to the rebel government. A conspiracy theory also emerged in the years after Lincoln's death that Pope Pius was somehow involved in the assassination and directing it or assisting it, and it was fueled by a number of factors, not the least which were that Mary Surratt, the convicted conspirator who was hung, and her son, John Surratt, who was wanted as a conspirator but fled to the protection of the Vatican, were both Catholics. Now, there's plenty of proof that Pope Pius was behind it. If you read Thomas Harris's book, Rome's Responsibility for the Assassination of Abraham Lincoln, he was a brigadier general at the time who oversaw the trial of Lincoln's assassinator, of the conspirators to assassinate Lincoln. And he said that there was enough evidence to convict the Pope. So there's no maybe about it. The Pope was part of this. And to me, since I believe that the Vatican was basically running the Democrat Party, we know that the South was ran by the Democrat Party, and it was even for a long time after the Civil War. actually almost a century after the Civil War. And in some regards, I still think the South is ran by the Democrat Party. I know there's a lot of elected so-called Republicans, but I don't view many of them as true Republicans. I view them as people who have infiltrated the party, and for the most part, don't really hold enough of the original Republican view. Um, some books I'd like to quote, because one of the key people that were writing in the North was Bishop Hughes. First of all, was the Catholic Archbishop of New York. Archbishop John Joseph Hughes was ordained in 1826 and appointed to the New York Diocese in 1838. During his early tenure, he tried to foster Catholic unity in a time of strong ethnic loyalties. Deeply concerned about anti-Catholicism and the effect of the Protestant public school society, he futilely attempted to get the state to give Catholics a portion of tax revenue. In 1842, he was appointed bishop, and in 1850, archbishop. He was instrumental in the founding of Fordham University and the building of St. Patrick's Cathedral. He toured Europe in 1861 and 1862 as Lincoln's unofficial emissary in order to gather support for the Union. Okay, now with that, I'd like to bring up, because see, some Catholics in some Catholic magazines, they try to paint Bishop Hughes in this good light. I'll bring up this one article by Angelus. Okay, it says, Lowry recounts the sad decline of Hughes last year's, his frustrations with his many projects, especially with St. Patrick's, and his anguish about the Civil War. He had been sent by William Stewart Lincoln's Secretary of State to Europe to speak unofficially for the Union calls in Paris, London, and Rome, but then was critical of the management of the war, especially the draft, which allowed the rich special treatment and sent many Irish young men to their death on the battlefield. Well, a lot of them didn't even go. That's the highest. Most of the Irish Catholics did not go. A lot of Catholics didn't even bother to fight in the Civil War, unless they fought for the Confederacy. I know a lot of the Northerners just dropped out. And this is coming from a Catholic publication, so they would kind of try to bend it this way. But anyway, the Irish rioted about the draft in New York in 1863 and have it rain for 3 days in the city. Herman Melville said the riots have taken over the city. Hughes was condemned for not doing enough to stop the riots, and then for being too understanding of the resentments of the Irish, who burned government buildings and even an orphanage for African American children. It was the worst times for the Archbishop, and that's kind of what I want to point out. They burned government buildings and even an orphanage for American children. Now, I'm going to point out something else, if I can find it. Bring that up on the screen. So anyway, this is from the book 50 Years in the Church of Rome, written by a Catholic priest that knew a Catholic priest named Charles Chinnicky that knew Abraham Lincoln. And anyway, he quotes him as saying, seeing the dangerous position of his bishops, referring to the Pope's bishops, and priests when siding with the rebels, my hope was that he would advise them for their own interests to become loyal and true to their allegiance and help us through the remaining part of the war. But the result has been the very contrary. The Pope has thrown away the mask and shown himself the public partisan and the protector of the rebellion by taking Jeff Davis by the hand and impudently recognizing the Southern states as a legitimate government. Now I have proof in hand that the very Bishop Hughes, who I had sent to Rome that he might induce the Pope to urge the Roman Catholics of the North at least to be true to their oath of allegiance, and who I thanked publicly when under the impression that he had acted honestly, according to the promise he had given me, is the very man who advised the Pope to recognize the legitimacy of the Southern Republic and to put the whole weight of his tiara in the balance against us in favor of our enemies. Such is the perfidy of those Jesuits. Two cankers are biting the very entrails of the United States today. The Romish and the Mormon priests both are quietly at work to form a people of the most abject, ignorant, and fanatical slaves who will recognize no other authority but their supreme pontiffs. Both are aiming at the destruction of our schools to raise themselves upon our ruins. Both shelter themselves under our grand and holy principles of liberty of conscience to destroy that very liberty of conscience and bind the world before their heavy and ignominious yoke. The Mormon and the Jesuit priests are equally the uncompromising enemies of our Constitution and laws. But the more dangerous of the two is the Jesuit, the Romish priest, for he knows better how to conceal his hatred under the mask of friendship and public good. He is better trained to commit the most cruel and diabolical deeds for the glory of God. So, obviously, Bishop Hughes was not some good, decent priest. He was very two-faced. He betrayed Lincoln's trust, and I keep reading like all these publications where they try to act like Lincoln spoke favorably about the Catholic Church, but this is like contrary. But all those things they cite is before much of this happened, and once this happened, Lincoln had changed his tone quite a bit towards the Catholic Church. And I'm going to bring up one more thing. So just, keep remembering the whole time, like I said, the Vatican had taken over the Democrat Party starting in, at least from what I understand, the 1840s. Okay, now, it's like a lot of these Catholic publications will say that, oh, poor Bishop Hughes, he had his hands so full and all this other stuff. So I'm going to quote some more Lincoln from the same book. The New York riots were evidently a Romish plot from the beginning to end. We have the proofs in hand that they were the work of Bishop Hughes and his emissaries. No doubt can remain in the minds of the most incredulous about that bloody attempt of Rome to destroy New York when he knows the easy way, it was stopped. I wrote to Bishop Hughes telling him that the whole country would hold him responsible for it if he would not stop it at once. He then gathered the rioters around his palace, called them his dear friends, invited them to go back home peacefully, and all was finished. So Jupiter of old used to raise a storm and stop it with a nod of his head. And basically saying Bishop Hughes raised that storm and then stopped it with the nod of his head because he was the one who caused it, so he's the one who could easily end it. From the beginning of our Civil War, there has been not a secret but a public alliance between the Pope of Rome and Jeff Davis, and that alliance has followed the common laws of this world's affairs. The greater has led the smaller, and the stronger has guided the weaker. The Pope and his Jesuits have advised, supported, and directed Jeff Davis on the land from the first gunshot at Fort Sumter by the rabid Roman Catholic Beauregard. See, that's also another thing they say is that, it's like the North tried to instigate the war, but right here we're seeing that it was a Roman Catholic Beauregard who fired the first shot. They are helping him on the sea by guiding and supporting the other rabid Roman Catholic pirate Siems on the ocean, and they will help the rebellion when firing their last gun to shed the blood of the last soldier of liberty who will fall in this fratricidal war. In my interview with Bishop Hughes, I told him that every stranger who had sworn allegiance to our government by becoming a United States citizen, as himself, was liable to be shot or hung as a perjured traitor and an armed spy, as the sentence of the court martial may direct, and he will be so shot and hanged accordingly, as there will be no exchange of such prisoners. After I had put this plea in the ears of the Roman bishop, I requested him to go and report my words to the Pope. Seeing the dangerous position of his bishops and priests when siding with the rebels, my hope was that he would advise them for their own interests to become loyal and true to their allegiance and help us through the remaining part of the war. So, yeah, I think I already read that part. I've read this second part first. So, anyway, so we can see that the Roman Catholic Church was even the ones responsible for firing the first shot of the Civil War. The Pope recognized the Confederacy, which helped give it legitimacy. And then I got this other one that I just found from, let's see here, Church Militant. Yes, I definitely want to go to this one because I thought this was super interesting. Okay, they say, oh boy. When you look up here, the Catholic Church has always condemned slavery as an intrinsic evil. Oh my gosh. Oh man, I don't want to make this video too long. I just wanted to bring up a couple of points, and but there was papal bulls. If they weren't issued, it would have done away with slavery. In fact, there were certain papal bulls that allowed slavery to continue. So you can't really say it's always condemned slavery as an intrinsic evil. I'd like to touch on that at some point. Maybe I'll just do a video specifically focusing on the Catholic Church and slavery. But anyway, it says a number of popes have publicly written against the practice. Pope Pius II in 1462, Paul III in 1537, Urban VIII in 1639, and Benedict XIV in 1741. Pope Gregory XVI issued an apostolic constitution in 1839, explicitly calling for the practice a shame to the Christian name. We're going to have to see, did they get rid of those papal bulls? But anyway, the one thing I thought was very interesting in this was Jefferson Davis, president of the Confederacy, was an aspiring Catholic and was sympathetic to the Catholic cause. So Catholic cause, Civil War, Catholic cause, Confederacy, like I said, I'm right now we see America, what is it? Everyone's saying it looks kind of like it's near a civil war. And you better believe this is the same hand in it. This is the same, the Vatican runs the deep state. So when I see Donald Trump appointing nothing but Roman Catholics like Barr, Kavanaugh, Amy Coney Barrett, and then you can even find public affirmation saying, like from Kavanaugh, he believes in global warming and all this other stuff. So it's like, why are we, what kind of like conservatives are these? People keep cheering for them. Oh, well, they're Catholic. They must be against abortion. But you can find plenty of people that are Catholic. I think one's either the governor of Virginia or Connecticut. I can't remember which it is. But she believes in abortion up to the time of birth. I think she even believes in it after birth. Like if you have a baby, you didn't mean to have it, you can go kill it. I don't know. Like I remember reading something to that effect, but I never got to check thoroughly in it. So that one kind of like hold off on being like, oh, this must be true. Well, look that up first. But I know she does believe in abortion. That I do know for sure. She's never excommunicated. So you can't give me this stuff like, oh, just because they're Roman Catholic, they're good. You keep saying that because this is what you believe it, because you want us to believe that. It's like you tell a lie enough and you expect people to start believing the lie. Like Muslim terrorists took down the Twin Towers and somehow also took down Building 7. It's like you tell us that lie enough, and I guess you expect some people to believe it, and maybe a lot of them will. I don't. That's why I kind of think Trump's so funny for hanging out with Giuliani. I thought a lot of people who voted for Trump don't think a lot of people who voted for Trump think 9/11 was an inside job. So. And here you are, you're supporting this guy who's palling around with Giuliani, who helped perpetrate the first 9/11, which took away many of your freedoms through the Patriot Act. And now we're kind of going through a second 9/11 with this whole COVID thing. We all know it's a bunch of garbage. We know it's just a common cold, right? Or flu. It's nothing more. You shouldn't spend $6 trillion on the flu and shut down the economy. But I don't want to get too sidetracked. But anyway, so Jefferson Davis, president of the Confederacy, was an aspiring Catholic and was sympathetic to the Catholic cause. He was known to wear Catholic sacramentals, a Saint Benedict medal, a miraculous medal, and a French scapular, as well as a brown scapular. Despite the United States as a whole not being friendly to Catholicism, North and South, about 20 Confederate generals and his cabinet were known to be practicing Catholics, and every Catholic bishop in the South supported the Confederacy. Think about that. Every Catholic bishop in the South supported the Confederacy. Here's Church Militant openly admitting that. This is a Catholic publication openly admitting this, okay? Now, they're going to try to defend this, but like I said earlier, the reason why they're going to try to defend the Confederacy is to say it was probably about states' rights and all that. Now, I haven't read all this. I just saw this one part and was like, oh, I want to add this to this video. But I'm guessing that they're going to probably try to defend this and defend the Catholic Church behind this by saying it was about states' rights. This is just because I've read a lot of pieces. This is typically how it goes. And maybe I'm wrong about this. I'll leave the link in the video description so you can read it yourself. But like I said earlier, many Americans looked at saving the Union as saving the country from being vulnerable to political influence of the British and European countries. So it was vital And so if the Union goes, they felt like America would go. And that's why the Union was so important. And they knew that Europe was going to constantly try to break America apart, try to infiltrate it, try to destroy it. So, oh, I do want to read this. In fact, it was written in 1863 in an 1863 letter from Pius IX to Davis, President Davis, that caused Congress to cut off all diplomatic ties to the Vatican. The letter had contained a signed photo of the Pope and most significantly addressed Davis as illustrious and honorable President of the Confederate States of America. This explicit recognition of Davis as a legitimate president of a separate country outraged the Union and is said to have caused Lincoln great distress. A little known fact about the battle flag: it takes its design from the flag of Scotland, which in turn has its origins in the St. Andrew's Cross, known as the Saltire. It was created at the saint's request because he didn't believe he was worthy to die in the same manner of our Lord, thus the origin of the X design on the Dixie flag. Huh. I did not know that. Okay, so that was actually very interesting to me. I cannot. And the title of the article is called The Catholic Confederacy. And this is, like I said, it's church militant, a Catholic organization that is basically admitting to this. But I will say one thing: I know there's going to be some people that go, oh, no, the South was about states' rights, and this had nothing to do with slavery. And I'd like to bring up one more thing. Video's probably almost over, but here's the declaration of the immediate causes which induce and justify the secession of the state of Mississippi from the federal union. And all the southern states had similar declarations. But anyway, in the momentous I don't know what happened. Oh, sorry. Okay, anyway, had a little glitch on my screen. And the momentous step which our state has taken of dissolving its connection with the government of which we so long formed a part, it is but just that we should declare the prominent reasons which have induced our course. Our position is thoroughly identified with the institution of slavery, the greatest material interest of the world. Its labor supply is a product which constitutes by far the large. I guess this is all they got on it, but I just want you to basically see most of these states, the first thing they were talking about was protecting the institution of slavery. That's one of the first things they named. You don't hardly see any other rights talked about right off the bat. That was the number one right. That's because that was the number one cause. That's why most of them were doing it. They felt like it was going to eventually be threatened one way or another. They thought if we kept adding more and more non-slave states, that eventually their institution would, there'd be enough states to just vote the institution of slavery out, or get rid of the institution of slavery. They didn't want to be in the minority. So that's another reason why they sought secession. And I think another reason was, the Vatican was trying to create a second country on America. And eventually, I think they had a design to try to take over the North eventually. Yeah, I mean, yeah, you say, hey, we could just let the South secede. But the whole purpose of the Monroe Doctrine was the fear of European meddling in the Americas. So to share, so to now split the country in half and share it with the people you're trying to protect it from, and have them right on the other side of your border, I don't think that's a good idea, especially such a large border as just simply cutting North and South America, North and South of USA in half. So not sure how much more I want to add to that. I think I'm going to leave that at that. I think I'm going to just call that a day on the video, and just want to say, just add that thought about the Democrat Party being taken over by the Vatican, because we do know that from me talking about the Catholic Church helping to get rid of the Bibles from public schools, that at first made deals with Democrat politicians, and in 1854 they started removing them out of New York. 38 schools were the first ones to have it taken out, and then they started to do it in Pennsylvania schools and other places. New York, it was completely taken out of the schools. So I mean, not New York, California, it was completely taken out of the schools. Eventually everywhere got taken out, but California around that time period got taken out. So and then I believe the Vatican had full control of the Democrat Party at that time, pretty much full control, and all it did was start gradually taking over the Republican Party as well. Some of the generals in the North, the reason why Lincoln had trouble with some of the battles wasn't because the Southern generals were so smart. They had a lot of priests and a lot of Catholics in the North giving up intelligence and giving that to the South. Not only that, there was a couple of generals like Meade, and I can't think of the other ones off the top of my head, but Lincoln, in one book, can't think it off the top of my head. I know it's written about in the Transformation of the Republic by C.T. Wilcox, and his website is available on my website, Fishing for Truth. It's right at the top of the page. You don't have to look hard for it. You can find his website. He wrote 2 books. One of them is called The Transformation of the Republic, and he talks about, he quotes from some earlier books and articles about how Lincoln was frustrated about me and questioning whether his allegiance was more to America, the United States, or whether it was to Rome, and he openly questioned that. So that's another reason why the North also struggled in these battles. We had traders in the North that were Catholic, that were giving the Southerners intelligence, and we had our own generals that were getting our soldiers killed. So, anyway, with that, I think I will conclude my broadcast. I think next week on, let's see here, I think I'll have time to do a longer broadcast. I'm not sure what time I'm going to start, but I think I'm going to probably do one around 7 o'clock next week. I'll post the time, or let people know what time it is, and I want to kind of make it like try to get more people to show up, actually promote the show this time, and let everyone have an advance notice. Try to see if I can get a decent guest on. Try to see if I can maybe get even a call board hooked up. Trying to still get a few more things going, and to actually have like a live call-in show, so we can maybe have sort of like a kind of like a Jason Goodman show, but I kind of want to have, and actually kind of like, I don't know if anyone's very familiar with Gematria News or Gematria Effects News, ran by Zach Hubbard. But what I would like to do is kind of have a show like that where I'm not like gematria focused, more just strictly, on the Catholic Church, the Jesuits, maybe a few current events, let people kind of call in, with, who might have good research and, or good points they want to make or questions they want to ask. And, allow people to call in and have like more of an interactive show and a show more dedicated to crowdsourcing truth and trying to do like crowdsource investigations and maybe get it big enough to where, if like someone's doing something and we get like 1,000 people listening to the show on the average, that, we can actually help people who are doing good things get attention. Because you notice that there's a lot of people in alternative media that are really trying to control the narrative. They won't promote people doing good work. They won't promote anyone that's trying to get at the root of the issues, the root of the problems. And I'm really trying to take what little extra time I got and trying to do something that's actually contrary to what those people are doing. Which is, hey, I don't like that you spoke against Kavanaugh, so I'm going to run you out of our truth movement, or I'm going to run you out of I'm going to ban you from my chats. And I'm like, I don't want to do any of that. I'm not going to do any of that. So, I basically I just want truth out there. So anyway, I think I'm going to wind up going to work today. And, just because it's an extra day for me, not like I'm lazy or something like, I might call in to work, but more like I'm very tired working 60 hours already, and I know my work wants help, so I think I'm going to go in there. But anyway, I hope everyone has a good night, and thanks for listening.